Welcome to the first, home learning lesson. We're going to be looking at control over the economy. This is our Unit 5, Nazi Policies, in our GCSE unit all about Germany. Our starter today is to have a look at the source and use source A and our own knowledge to describe the impact of the Great Depression on Germany. And we'll be pulling back to a lot of the knowledge we have about the Great Depression in America. Now, if we remember back, we know that the policies of Hoover, laissez-faire and rugged individualism, really weren't all that popular. And this actually forced Hoover to lose the 1933 election, and it saw Roosevelt come in as president. Now, Roosevelt's policies of the New Deal and the alphabet agencies were highly popular with American citizens. And when Hitler was trying to resolve the Great Depression in Nazi Germany, he looked to the model the USA had created. So we need to keep in mind that if the Great Depression in America was bad, when America gives the loans under the Dawes Plan and the Young Plan to Germany and recall them in 1929, the Great Depression in Germany is going to be even worse. Now, source A is an image. We've got some German people lined up. Not exactly sure what they are lined up for, but given this photo was taken between 1929 and 1933, we can make the assumption that they are lining up for something to do with work or food. At this point, if you would like to pause the video and give yourself about 5 minutes to write down, using source A and your own knowledge, the impact of the Great Depression on Germany. You're looking for one paragraph in length, and you're trying to give 3 facts you know using source A and your own knowledge. So give that a pause now. Go ahead, spend about 5 minutes, and when you're ready to have a look at some of the answers, you can click play. Right, so now that you are finished, we're going to take a look at some of the possible answers you could have come up with. There should have been a mention of the USA's heavy investment in Germany under the Dawes Plan, and after the Wall Street crash, investors pulled out and recalled that money back. That left Germany in a significant amount of debt and a lot of people with lost jobs. Germany was hit much harder than America. They had 6 million unemployed and many people were left homeless. The economy became incredibly unstable. The Weimar government could not, for the life of them, fix the problem, and they were having a difficult time maintaining order. Germans wanted change, even if that meant a revolution. And the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, towards the end of the First World War, really set a model for German people to look at. They saw Russians who were hungry, who were homeless. They rose up against their government, and they succeeded. And this was really offering Germans a lot of hope. If we stand up against our government, maybe we can succeed as well. And the last is the desperation of Germans often gave way to Hitler's promises of recovery. We need to think of this contextually, and we have to pretend as though we are a German person who has just lost their job and their home. And there's this man named Hitler who has a lot of crazy ideas, but has a lot of promises in terms of helping us recover. So we do know that he is anti-Semitic, that he's putting Jews in concentration camps. But we also know that if he promises us a job, he will give us a job. And we're going to weigh that up personally and ask ourselves, what's more important to me? Is it going to be helping people of a different faith, or is it going to be making sure I'm able to put food on the table? And many Germans, the desperation they felt led to them to following Hitler, even though it wasn't a choice that maybe they fundamentally agreed with. We've got some key words, and if you do have your summary booklets, you can go ahead and you can fill these in the back in the glossary pages. So invisible unemployment, it's just what we think it is. It's women and Jews not being counted in those employment statistics. Now, deficit spending. We've talked about a deficit in terms of our study of America, and that's when there's not enough cash, so deficit spending will be spending financed by borrowing. Inflation, similar to hyperinflation, which we're very familiar with, a general increase in the price in goods and the fall in money. Conscription, again, forced military service, and the RAD is the National Labor Service, young men doing manual labor between the ages of 18 and 25, something we will come to in future lessons in a bit more depth and detail. We're going to have a look at some data, and we're going to try to look at the summary of unemployment, the factors that led to this, and what was being hidden or what was invisible, and why was this actually being used. So our summary is we've got 6 million unemployed people, and it's going to be a steady decrease to about 380,000 unemployed in Germany by 1939. And if we just look, that's going from 6 million to under 500,000 in the course of 6 years, which is a really big improvement in terms of unemployment. Now, factors that led to this, we had war industry was employing more Germans after 1933. Hitler's policies and work programs, the RAD and the DAF, were getting people back to work. Although it was temporary, it was still work. And this is the big one we're going to look at, is invisible unemployment. So why was it invisible and why was it being used? Well, the Germans knew they had to look good, and they had to look good in the eyes of Britain and France, so they would get off their case and let them get on with, essentially, developing their military in secret. Women and Jews were not counted in employment statistics. Women were not counted because they were seen as fully employed as wives and mums, and Jews were not counted because, well, they were not people. And again, this was to make Nazism in Germany look better during the Depression. So here we have our employment stats. So in 1933, we've got 6 million people in Nazi Germany without jobs. It's going to go down to about 4.2 million in 34. We're going to go just below 3.5 million in 1935. And again, we can just see the steady decrease in this direction. So just going down very steadily. And the question that a lot of people often ask is, how was this possible when America struggled so heavily to reduce their unemployment rate? And the simple answer is some people are not being counted in these stats. And in a few moments, we'll actually look at why this was used and how it was so effective. terms of the numbers that Hitler was going to use. The last thing for us to do today is to make a little mind map and to understand the differences between the National Labour Service, Public Works Schemes, rearming, the KDF, the 4-year plan, and the Nazi stats. This is one we've talked about a lot today, but these are some others that we do need to just be familiar with. So the National Labour Service was for every single man between the ages of 18 and 25. They had to do 6 months of labour. This was digging ditches, which oddly enough seemed like a trench that you would live in the military, creating roads, manual labor jobs, not a lot of skill, but really getting people strong for military service. Our public works schemes, we had the Autobahns, which were motorways, hospitals, and houses, all things that would be needed by the Germans after the war. And working with hands was really important because you couldn't give out work that was incredibly skilled. So you couldn't ask a regular person to design a school, but you could ask a regular person to help dig the foundations for a school. Rearming, this was to increase the size of the army. Again, under the Treaty of Versailles, it was limited to just 100,000 soldiers, no tanks, no submarines. Hitler needed to rearm in secret. And again, that policy of appeasement where the Allies would allow Hitler to do things because they believed it was reasonable was crucial in the rearming process. The British knew that Hitler was rebuilding his army, but they also thought it was reasonable that he had more than 100,000 soldiers because it's simply not enough to protect your country against others. The Navy was building 2 new warships. Again, these were all things that were known to the Allies, but it was also viewed as reasonable. And in doing so, creating all these military factories, Hitler had thousands of people back to work. Invisible unemployment, women and Jews were not counted in the RAD statistics. The 4-year plan was all about getting ready for war, building those arms, and most importantly, ensuring Germany was self-sufficient. Germany knew that when it came time for them to invade another nation, they would make enemies, and you do not trade with your enemies. This was important as Germany needed fuel, they needed coal, they needed raw materials to be building with. And they had to get all of that from within their own borders. They knew that once we go ahead and we invade, for example, Poland, Britain is going to stop trading fuel with us. And we need to make sure that we're prepared to be able to operate under our own strength rather than relying on other countries. And the last is the KDF. We'll come to this a bit more in our next lesson, but this was a work program set up to ensure leisure opportunities for workers. If we just want to imagine working in a Nazi war factory is going to be a really hard job. You're not going to get a lot of free time to yourself, and it's going to be very monotonous, repetitive work. You're probably not going to enjoy your job. But if you had the highest productivity on your assembly line, that you would get an extra day paid, and you would have that time to spend with your family or a nice holiday away for the weekend to go camping, you might work that little bit harder. The KDF also used Volkswagen. That translates literally into the people's car. And there was a scheme made, which we'll talk about in our next lesson, where these cars were made for German workers to again, lift their spirits. But holidays, theater tickets, all these were provided under the KDF. Again, if you can make this into a mind map, please, just so you understand the differences between them. These will also be appearing on a Show My Homework quiz, which will also be uploaded for you to do in summary of this lesson. Being played. It was not being so